Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But right now we are closing out season 3 of the Murderbot Diaries. It's our season finale, guys.
It's our season finale, an episode all about Murderbot and nothing else.
And I mean, we will obviously come back to Murderbot because the series is actually still being written, so expect more in the future. But it is the season 3 finale on the button of our journey through Murderbot for the first time.
Right. I don't know why I was thinking like 6 seasons in a movie in terms of like Community, and I was like, 6 novellas in a full length novel.
Six novellas in a novel. I hope Martha Wells goes out
5,
like
and then there'll be 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that she sticks to Community's guidelines. That would be very funny to me.
Yeah, that would be very funny. I like that.
I'm a little bit quieter today. I'm going to use my ASMR voice because I'm kind of losing my voice, have a sore throat-ish. So I'm going to be doing my best ASMR voice today.
So Hannah has to do better at sounding not so grating and screaming at Laura.
No, we're just both I'm usually high energy, and I talk loud, so that it's not going to be happening as much today, but I'm going to try to do my ASMR low volume, low register voice today. Hopefully no one falls asleep.
I'll start to...
Yeah, should I start tapping on things? If only I had like some kind of like cork type material to be tapping on, that would be great. Like
the entire time we're talking about Murderbot.
We should do an ASMR episode where it's just all ASMR.
Do you think Murderbot would like ASMR, or would Murderbot be so like stupid humans? Why do they need to tap on things?
So let's just dive right in. I'm going to just tell you right now, I have self-inserted into Murderbot. I cannot tell you how much I relate to this character and want to put my own personality traits on Murderbot. I feel so similar to Murderbot. So when you say, does Murderbot like ASMR? I'm like, yes, Murderbot loves ASMR.
But it's only because you like
because
ASMR?
I love ASMR, so obviously Murderbot would. Murderbot is all about it. About it.
I know we've made this quote recently, but it goes to show, like, I feel like this is the perfect one of Laura and Murderbot, where it's like, well, I like my Skechers, but I love my Prada backpack. Well, I love my Skechers. That's because you don't have a Prada backpack. Oh, like it's giving that energy where Murderbot has to like hold Laura's hand and be like, look, it's just, I don't love ASMR as much as you do. Mm-hmm. But I love that. Well, do you want to get into the Murderbot discussion like you said, or do you want to do reading, watching, and enjoying first? Or are you just like, we're doing
we haven't done reading, watching, and enjoying on our other season finale, so I figured we'd just dive right in.
All right, let's dive right in then. Laura, you were the one who brought Murderbot to us. How are your feelings after this season?
I feel really good about this. So this was the first series that I had been like, let's do it. Let's read this one. This was the first series that I had picked. And I'm pretty proud of myself for picking this. I was a little nervous because I was like, what if this is a series we don't like? But it was one that I'd heard a lot of good things about. And I'd heard some of our friends on fiction fans talk about Murderbot, and FDF, they'd talked about Murderbot before and said good things, and I was like, I think this would be a good series. I had been wanting to read it for a while, and I'm so glad we did it for our 3rd season. It was kind of a different change of pace, and obviously faster because it's novellas, but for me, these books like hit perfectly at this like time because they were easier for me to read, even though sometimes I did procrastinate and have to read one book like the day before we recorded because I am a procrastinator. But Same. They just were really perfect little chunks of books to read, and then they also just hit me in the right way where they had just enough depth and things to think about, lovable characters, and I just really enjoyed them. They're also part of my sci-fi era. So and probably the epitome of my sci-fi era. I have loved these books so much, and I'm so glad that I recommended we read them. Hannah, how did you feel about this series and me recommending them?
Well, I think going into it, I didn't know what to expect because I honestly didn't know very much about Murderbot. Like I had heard the
Mhm.
Fiction Fans and FDF episode, of course. Uh, but I was excited to cover a book that Laura recommended. And Laura, have you read much science fiction before this year?
A little bit more dystopian type stuff.
Yeah. And so I think for me, I I knew that science fiction was like a genre that I kind of like. It was an underlying fave of mine. Like I know that I really
Mhm.
enjoy science fiction when I read it. It's just a certain brand of
I feel like
fiction that
your
really.
science fiction, you kind of tend to go more for like the futurist, not so much of the space opera type, but
I
more of
do.
like the futuristic, like things are getting interesting type
I think I do like
situation.
environmental weird stuff is my
Yes.
science fiction.
Yes.
And I really, and like that's kind of the brand of science fiction that I love is just like weird
Hmm.
world building where you kind of just have to accept it.
Yeah.
What's going on? Like, oh, people went down deep into the ocean and found something weird. And that's the
Mhm.
science fiction part. Like, I really like that. And so I knew because it was science fiction, like again, we haven't done a ton. It's not like in our mainstay of our oeuvre, but I
Right.
did know that I really liked science fiction. So I was hoping that
Hmm.
this would be very similar to that. But I think what was unexpected was just how much I loved Murderbot. Like I
Yeah.
just love the details of it and the way like it works with people. And I also really loved that like Martha Wells seems to take themes and just touch upon them and let you think about them more than like
Right.
Murderbot. And that might be a function of the novella of like, there's
Hmm.
not a ton of space here. There's not everything on the page. So you have to fill in those stop gaps. And I really enjoyed being able to do that because that's something I really I adore that about science fiction that a lot of times
Hmm. It's open
they'll
ended.
it's open ended, so you're the one making the decisions on what you care most about. And I just really enjoyed taking that journey with Murderbot and like looking into all of this stuff. And I was just really glad that you suggested this book series because I think it took us it took the podcast in a different place too if you think about it. Like usually we
Hmm.
do a deep dive into characters, and on this read, because of the like type of novel we were reading, we moved more into the themes. And I honestly think
Sure.
sometimes you and I love doing that even more
Hmm.
because like that's what
Hmm.
really gets us going, is talking about the themes and going deeper into those things and like
Sure.
letting the book speak to certain things that we see in the world. And I really think Murderbot just does that for everyone, so it's really fun.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to just touch back on what you said about like Martha Wells like keeping the themes so brief because they're novellas. I know you and I had talked about this in like previous discussions, like, oh, like I wonder if this is going to be brought up in the next book, or I wonder where this is
Mm-hmm.
going to go. And we both had ideas for how things were going to happen. Like, oh, I think this might happen, or I think this might happen. And I think we both got to a point where we were just like, nope, it's just going to drop there. She's just
Yeah.
going to she's just going to mention it, and it's something for us as readers to think about, like
Mm-hmm.
what are the consequences of this happening, what should be the path going forward, and then maybe it's going to be brought up again, but likely not, because Murderbot is a very like self-centered
Mm-hmm.
character, if nothing else. So Murderbot's not going to focus on some of these things from book to book. It'll mention them that they're happening and let us think about them. And
Right.
I I think that that is really a unique way to write a series,
Mm-hmm.
and it it's really effective,
Yeah.
and a lot of people resonate with it.
Well, and also I think like something that goes into that is I think sometimes it's easy in a novel to have characters kind of hem and haw over their ideas and
Hmm.
ideals because it's always interesting to watch a character be like,
Sure.
oh, I have to grow in this way, I have to grow in this way. And like Murderbot does have those moments, but
Hmm.
also at the end of the day, like Murderbot has very distinct ethics and values. So like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I always bring it back to the like people who the slaves that have to go to these planets, and Murderbot knows that it's wrong. So it's like, well, I'm not going to stay fixated on that. I just know it's wrong. And
Hmm.
like, that's it. And so I do think sometimes you and I are like, oh, is Murderbot going to go back to that? And it's like, well, what else does Murderbot have to learn?
Right. Murderbot just
Murderbot's
knows
done.
and it moves on.
Yeah. And so
It's like,
Murderbot's just
this
like,
is not
hey,
okay, but whatever, moving on.
this is
At
the way
least
the
I get
world
paid,
works.
and
Yeah.
they unfortunately have to use their pay for food. So that
So
stinks.
yeah, and like you guys think that I have it so bad, but I don't. Because if you look at these other
Mhm.
people, you treat them so much worse than you treat me.
Right.
So I don't even know what to say about that anymore. And I do like that, like, Murderbot seems to have very specific values that it doesn't need to grow. It needs to grow in
Right.
like its own personhood, but from the outside looking in, like it's got pretty good head on its shoulder where it's
Mhm.
like the corporation's evil, that's
Mhm.
it. Like it's not a good place to work. It's not a good value of people. And what else would I learn from that? And then like all these other people are like, oh, you're saying we can't trust people? And Murderbot's like, obviously you can't trust people. What is
Obviously, you
wrong
can't
with
trust people.
you? Like,
But Murderbot does, throughout the series, start to have some personal growth where
mhm,
it realizes it can trust people. It realizes not everyone is bad, and it
mhm.
kind of has some of that cynicism scratched off a little bit. It starts
Just
to
a little
wear
bit.
off just a little bit. And even enough at times where Murderbot's like, I shouldn't have even denied my own thoughts. Like, I should just went with my gut instinct because I knew that something was going to happen. So it, there's been enough wearing down on Murderbot that it not only trusts people, but it's starting to become a little more human like, where it's
Mhm.
getting too trusting at times and not looking into things the way that it
Right.
should. So I think that's definitely an interesting aspect of Murderbot's growth.
I was looking at some articles because it's the season finale. I'd like to revisit,
Mhm.
and I saw some stuff about like how Martha Wells kind of thought her career was over when she came to Murderbot.
Amazing.
And she kind of thought she didn't really have anything else to say, or that the world wouldn't let her say anything else as a 56-year-old woman when she kind of came into writing this, and how
Mhm.
this revitalized her career in a very unique way, and how she wasn't expecting people to kind of have this attachment to Murderbot. And
Mhm.
I think that that's a wonderfully hopeful discussion for the creator of Murderbot to
Yeah.
have this moment of devaluing yourself, where you're saying like the world doesn't really want me anymore, and then creating a character that has similar feelings, but everyone wants Murderbot. Like everyone
Right.
who reads this book, or characters in this book, like as long as they spend a little bit of time with Murderbot, even if they don't always like the way Murderbot thinks, like they can't help but kind of love Murderbot. And I think that that's very similar to what Martha Wells was probably feeling.
Hearing that makes me a little emotional that she said that, because like these books like have hit me in a time in life when I really needed them, and they've been very important to me. And so like hearing her say that she didn't think they were going to resonate with anyone, she thought she didn't have anything left to say, like, Martha, if you're listening, you totally had so much to say, and these books hit people and were so special to people. And I said just a little bit ago, like, I felt myself in Murderbot so many times, but these books are really important to me, and
Mhm.
they really like helped me connect not only with the characters and themes and like thinking about my own world, but like about myself and
Yeah.
how I experience my own life and how I like relate to my own community and people in my life and how I picture myself.
Yeah.
So these books have been very important to me, and I'm sure that the reason that they are so popular with all these people is because other people have the same type of connection to Murderbot and the other characters.
Yeah.
So amazing that Murderbot has been such a successful thing for Martha, and Martha definitely has so much to say, and we need to hear all of it.
Yeah. And I also love that like Murderbot gave her the opportunity to do things like now she has like the Witch King, which is an epic fantasy,
Yeah.
and she gets to try new things because Murderbot gave this to
Yeah, I
her,
love
and
that
it
this
gives
is
to
just
all
like
of
this
us.
revitalization of
Hmm.
her writing, and that it's amazing too, because it almost feels like now it's like she gets to take more chances because
Yeah.
Murderbot has allowed her to.
Hmm.
And I hope that it's not something where she becomes like stuck in Murderbot. I hope that like Witch King and some she gets to, we have mentioned like, let's read some of her other books. I
Right.
hope that other readers are doing this too, and that she gets the opportunity to grow as a writer and to see some of her old work revisited, she deserves it. She deserves
Right.
it. Absolutely. She seems like a great person.
I agree. Um, Laura, is there a character? I know we just said that we always get this stuff wrong because Martha Wells is amazing and she has better ideas than we do when it comes to
Yeah.
Murderbot. But is there a character that you can't wait to see more of in future novels?
So, I read actually the short story, Home, through Home Habitat Range Territory, I think is what it was, that Martha Wells had written before uh, Fugitive Telemetry. I said it right.
Good job. Yay.
Before that one came out. I won't be able to do it again, so I said that one. Before that one came out, that she released kind of just to get people excited about it. It was just like 20 pages, but it was from the point of view of Dr. Mensa. And that was really interesting to me. And it got into like a lot of the things that we get in the books to come, where you're like, okay, well, we know about the therapy that's going to happen, and you get some of that insight, and it's just the perfect little nugget to kind of get you excited for that novella. But I would kind of like to see more of that, where we're not always in Murderbot's point of view, where we get either Dr. Mensa's or another character's point of view. I don't know that there's necessarily a character that I feel as connected to as much as I do Murderbot, Art, and Mickey. Obviously, Mickey is gone, but maybe Art. If we could get some point of view of Art, I would be excited about that. But I would just like to have maybe a little more like dual point of view, or switching from a few points, multiple points of view, just so we're not always in Murderbot's head, because as I have said previously, Murderbot is not always a reliable narrator.
I think it's funny that you said Dr. Mensa because I actually feel a lot of connections to Dr. Mensa myself. Like, I know you see a lot of yourself in Murderbot. I do see a lot of myself in Dr. Mensa, and the like, just keep pushing forward, don't stop. And when you do, it's just like, oh, you're going to fall apart, and you like rely on things that you shouldn't be relying on. And you actually, like, I don't know, when I was growing up, I had a very high set of values that almost no one could hit, even myself. And I think that sometimes Dr. Mensa is guilty of that, where she has like a very specific view of the world where it's like everything is good and people are good. And then you get disappointed because you find out like people are flawed human beings. And I was definitely guilty of that in my more naive days. So I would love to see Dr. Mensa. I will also say that like I'm kind of hoping we get more of the characters coming back from like older books, because I feel like right now they've kind of become all like stock side characters, like Garothan, who has like a lot of interesting discussions with Murderbot, is just there to like help her or help Murderbot break into things, and like and there are certain ones where I'm like, oh, I hope they get to have like more conversations, and I hope we get to see a little bit more growth of other people and Art and things like that, where it's like, you're right, Murderbot isn't always the most reliable narrator, but because of that, I think sometimes Murderbot is kind of like, it's just a Murderbot world, we're all living in it, and it's like, well, Murderbot, you're also not seeing what other people are doing right now unless they're like in your orbit. main
character energy.
Main character energy, Murderbot.
I'm living in my own story. I don't know why I feel that, but I feel like Murderbot watches Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh my gosh, Murderbot is the biggest fan of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, except for the musical numbers, which just doesn't get.
I don't understand those, but
but they make me have feelings, and I don't like it. Like,
I'm having an emotion.
You ruined everything. I'm having a feeling. I can't handle this.
Stupid bitch. The greatest. How do you feel about some of the like more specific like gender identity and politics that we get throughout this series?
I just love it so much. It's doing like,
it's so natural, right?
It's so natural, and it's doing exactly what people have been complaining about with some science fictions for like the entire existence of science fiction, where it's like, or like fantasy sometimes, where people are like, well, you have to hate women in fantasy, it's a historical text, and it's like, what history are you talking about? There are dragons and magic and things, like, can't you just make equality in this? And so I do like the fact that like in gender identity and expression and everything. It's so natural, and it just doesn't have to be a thing. It's just, this is the world they exist in this world, it's accepted and no one questions it. And it's like, yes, guess what? If you had different races and species all intermingling, I'm guessing you wouldn't think gender was that big of a deal, because it just isn't at that point. And like, there are a million different types of creatures and beings out there. So there are a million type of expressions out there. And I love that Martha Wells doesn't make it a big deal. And it's just like part of this time in the most unique way.
So Drop Everything and Read on Instagram, Bookstagram, is a huge Murderbot fan. Go follow Drop Everything and Read. And so this is where I'm just kind of thinking of some of the stats that they have put together on their own Bookstagram. They love Murderbot, so they do Murderbot Mondays, and they've put together these graphs where they show for each novella, like how many characters are male, how many are female, how many are non-binary, and almost half are female in every book. And it's amazing to me how it's, like you said, Hannah, that there's so many other books where people are like, well, you can't have women in it, and people won't respect them, blah, blah. And this is a book where it's like, yeah, women do things, women are powerful, women are in charge. We have people who don't identify as women, who are non-binary, that do awesome things. Murderbot is, is Murderbot,
I mean, Murderbot is a construct, or
Murderbot is a construct. Murderbot is obviously asexual.
Yes.
I don't know if, I'm trying to think what gender we would assign Murderbot, but
I would just say it's non-gendered.
It's a non-gendered.
Yeah.
But it's something that you don't really get in other novels where you have this much natural diversity.
Right.
If that makes sense. And I keep saying natural because it comes off so easily that you don't question things. I know there's so many characters that you and I previously have probably misgendered characters, and that is more so us not being able to keep track of names, I think, than anything. But this is a world where it's so well put together and well thought of, and everyone is so respected. Even you don't have any villains or villainous things going on in terms of people's gender equality or their position or rank. And I think that that's such a nice thing to read about. And I think like other authors take notes, because it's easy. Just read this. It's really not that hard.
Well, and I will also say, like, in our, to not give us too much credit, we have misgendered people. And I also think that that's just, it shows that the problem isn't these books. The problem is we as a society haven't learned as much as these books and haven't gotten to that point. Because we had a hard time with like Murderbot. Sometimes we call Murderbot him, sometimes we call it her. And it's like, it's just because we're not used to using pronouns of like it's when we're talking about a construct that can communicate with others. And so it's like, oh, well, that is a failing of ours. It's not a failing of Murderbot's, and it's definitely not a failing of Martha Wells. It's just like, oh yeah, society hasn't progressed to this point. And it's nice to see. And it's nice to see that it's one of those things where it's like, well, that's why people make mistakes in this world, because you just haven't learned enough yet to be able to make that switch quick enough. And
if
so
we have offended anyone with like any of the misgendering of characters, we apologize. It was definitely not like malicious and not intended.
Right.
Like I said, and Hannah put it better, that it's more of a, we have work to do as a society, we have work to do personally, to like be more cognizant of this. But I kind of chalk it up to what you said. And then also there's just a lot of characters to keep track of. There's a lot of characters to keep track of.
And that's like, I mean, and I do think that that's also a wonderful thing about, like, it shows that we as a society just have more to learn. Cause again, like, we have misgendered art and we have misgendered Murderbot the most because we're not used to saying it's, but also we haven't done it as like, Murderbot is definitely always like her. It's like, sometimes we'll be like, and him. And it's just like, what, why in that moment did I decide to like pick this specific thing? And I do think it shows the beauty of Martha Wells that we haven't like put a specific identity on
Mhm.
Murderbot. It is always fluid. And I think
Yeah.
that that is also amazing to do, because I think it would be very
Mhm.
easy to be like, well, of course I call it it, but we all know that it has more like feminine, like gender, you know, it's just like,
Sure.
no, that's not how it is. And like,
Right.
I think I would be sad, like, we people are talking about like, oh, you need a, you know, it's Murderbot needs a television show, or like, I don't know if people are screaming for that, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh god, if we did that, you would just need to make any, like, you would need to make very specific choices to show this on
Mhm.
television, because it's easier to do in your mind than it
Right.
is to do on television, where,
Mhm.
you know, and
I think this would
obviously,
be a really difficult series to adapt, honestly.
yes.
I think it would be very difficult. So, although I would definitely watch a Murderbot show, I
Yeah.
think it would be very, very difficult to adapt.
Hmm.
And I'm almost going to maybe be on the side of, we're not there yet in terms of
Yeah.
adapting this series. We are still like working towards
Hmm.
uh developing good science fiction shows.
Hmm.
So I think we still have some work to do and before we're ready to adapt a series like this.
Right. I would agree with that. But also like good, there are
I mean,
more.
if somebody's willing to take on all that is involved in this, awesome. But it will take a lot of work, I think, to
Right.
make it, one, hold up to the series itself as Martha has
Hmm.
written it, and two, to make it come off as, I don't even know what I'm going
Yeah.
for here.
I mean, it's a hard thing to discuss openly, because like, you
Mhm.
don't want to, like, we're discussing how difficult it would be, because it is difficult, because
Mhm.
we live in a society where it's like, well, as soon as they cast an actor or actress or non-binary person, people still put on those gender roles onto
Right.
certain
Exactly.
things. So like, you could easily cast like a non-binary person to play Murderbot, but people will then be like, well, people go into very invasive topics that don't need to happen for
Mhm.
this kind of
Right.
thing. So you need almost, you know, this book is very great because it's very specific on like, hey, no one cares about gender, so it's just
Right.
not a thing to worry about what Murderbot looks like. Murderbot looks like
Right.
a construct. Like,
Mhm.
so I do think it would be very difficult to show this well at this point in time, with
Right.
the way society views gender and
Gender.
gender
Sure.
identity. So
Hannah, how do you feel about the way that constructs have been represented and some of the questions that we've been given in regards to constructs and their own identities and free will?
I mean, I love it so much. Like, I just think
Mhm.
this is such a well done novel series that talks about identity. And like, I've always identified it as like humanity versus being a human. And like, I think that Murderbot has so much humanity in it. And
Mhm.
as a construct, like, having to learn that that's very unique and not unique at all, because all of the
Right.
constructs have different viewpoints and different personalities. And the fact that like Murderbot was taught that like none of them had it, to the point that like it's shocked whenever it meets a construct and it's like, oh, or like an android, and it's like, you have a personality. And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, and I do love that like Murderbot, I also love the world building Martha Wells does, where like Murderbot's like, well, this ship doesn't really talk that much, but sometimes that's nice. And it
Mhm.
talks in this way. So I talk to it in this way because it can't
Mhm.
understand me otherwise. And like, that goes back to the representation of it all, of like, hey, some ships communicate via picture. And so you have to show it pictures of what you want it to do, and then it will
Right.
understand you. And like, fighting it or saying like you're a superior being doesn't help anything. And it's just like
Mhm.
existing together. And I like that, like, Murderbot meets art, which is like a ship where Murderbot's like, art is working on like levels I can't even compare with, but I'm very jealous of that fact. It's just so perfect. I don't know.
I think we could go on forever about the relationship between art and Murderbot, but I think for me, like the constructs and the way that they've been written, it's so nuanced.
Hmm.
And I love that Murderbot is growing. Murderbot is learning, oh, I'm not the only one that has like humanity. I'm not the only one that desires free will. I am not the only one that has the ability to make friends or do things. So I love that Murderbot's gaining this recognition of I'm not the only special construct, because I think
Mhm.
at times we all kind of get that main character energy and we're like, I'm the only one going through something like this. And no, there's lots of people that have the same type of situations that go through
Mhm.
similar things. I think a turning point in this series was Murderbot meeting Mickey in Rogue
Mhm.
Protocol, where Murderbot just assumed so many things about Mickey that it could never have a friend, that it could never have any type of friendly relationship with any kind of human. There's no way that it'd be treated with respect. There's no way that it could desire anything. And I loved that Murderbot was proven wrong,
Mhm.
and had to realize, no, I guess this is actually a friend of Mickey's,
Mhm.
that, you know, and that I could be friends with other constructs.
Mhm.
That's a possibility for my own future. So, but at the same time, we also see constructs where they don't desire anything beyond
Mhm.
their function. We meet that combat bot that's says basically, I just want to kill you. That's my
Yeah.
desire.
Right.
And oh, okay, well, that didn't work out the way I planned it, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of interesting discussions to be had in terms of the free will that is allotted to these constructs
Mhm.
and whether or not they are in slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have to think of it that way, because they are created for a purpose and only allowed to do that purpose. And
Mhm.
not everyone is able to hack their governor module like
Mhm.
Murderbot does. So there are definite ethical concerns there. And we've also said, is Murderbot going to be the one to, you know, bring about this change to other constructs? And I don't know if Murderbot should have to do that.
Mhm.
You know, it's so it's a lot of bumpy areas in
Right.
terms of going forward. You know, should Murderbot do this? Should we expect this of Murderbot? Should Art do this? Should we have to have one being trying to be our savior for all the
Mhm.
others? You know, there's so many complicated things. And I just love the way that these constructs have been presented, and it it's all just really well done.
Right.
Martha Wells has covered so many bases with this. And I also wanted to point out, you mentioned different forms of communication and like being inferior slash superior beings. I think that this is also something that I can kind of relate to, like ableism,
Mhm.
and how we as a society have not gotten to a point where we are as accepting of finding forms of communication that work for all people,
Mhm.
and that we try to force people into a single form of communication, or that we try to force standards on people and they can't always meet them because
Mhm.
they could be disabled
Yeah.
or have different abilities. And I think there's a lot to be said in terms of the way that Murderbot is accepting and willing to work with all sorts of different peoples and constructs and meet them on their level in a way that is not questioned. If it
Right.
can't communicate in one way with someone, it tries another way. It finds the way that it can communicate. It finds the way that it can work with other people or help people or get them from one place to the next.
Mhm.
And there's no questioning of ability. There's no I'm better than you type situation.
Right.
And I think that's really great too.
No, I fully agree. And I think I was trying to like hit on that, but I'm glad you expounded on it. And I don't know. I also think that like it's so interesting because as we talk more and more about how constructs are treated, especially like sec units who have these governor modules, like if you think about it in another way, like if you go into any other sec unit, it could be a horror story because, like, honestly,
Yeah.
Murderbot doesn't remember a certain part of its past when the governor module was working. So it's like, are these entities like stuck in their head knowing that they have to do these things because something told them to
Hmm.
and they can't get out? And I do think, like, it's good to talk about responsibility because like no one has to do something, but like it's like, do you feel called to do something, or will Murderbot feel called to help these entities once, or these constructs, once it figures out like what's going on inside their minds? Because it would never want to live in that world. And that's such an interesting thought to really go down into. And like, there's just so many rabbit holes to go into with Murderbot. And like, it's just such good representation. It's good with like how Murderbot is accepting of things, and like discussing that like each construct is unique in its own way, because some of them might want freedom and some of them don't. And like, that's, humans are all different. We're not all the same. So it's good. I like that Martha Wells is able to do that with different types of beings and go into those questions and themes.
As we're talking through some of these things, like I'm hearing you mention this or that, and I'm like connecting it. I'm making connections in my own brain, whether they were intentional with the writing or not, but I'm finding like parallels to, you know, ableism, finding parallels to sexism. And I'm also, I find a lot of parallels to like, and this is my own situation as a chronic illness warrior with chronic illness, and you saying like being trapped, and there's all these fears that Murderbot has of, I mean, they're fears of Murderbot that Murderbot has of falling into a certain path, or being like taken over again by the company, or being trapped in a situation where it can't control itself. And it really reminds me a lot of chronic illness, where you can't control what's going on with your own body. You feel trapped, you experience all these fears and doubts and not knowing what's going to happen. And so I don't know if a lot of these things were intentional, but there are a lot of parallels that you can make to different situations. And I think that that's a really unique type of book where you can do that, especially one that's only 150 pages. So,
and I think that this is a testament to telling these types of stories, and shows why these stories have such value, because
and why they resonate with so many people.
Because like, you don't always want to read about like, you don't want to always read about someone who's like, oh, woe is me, this has happened, where it's like, sometimes it's about the themes and about how it makes you feel. And Murderbot allows us to feel certain things about its own fears and wants and needs that validate the human experience, honestly. Like, the fear of not having control of yourself, the fear that you will always be a very specific thing and no one will ever see you differently. Like, these are all just such human
mental
experiences.
Health. I mean, all of these things can be traced. You can, if you have any type of experience, you can really trace it into this book. It's amazing. So I know like my own like social anxiety and just general anxiety, I can pick out parts of Murderbot in myself where I'm like, yep, that's me. Just want to go watch TV rather than talk to all these people. So there's so much to be said about the writing and how it connects to people with all sorts of human experiences. Thank you, Martha Wells, anthropology major.
No, I think I think that that's honestly the best thing we can say, is like, this is a book about the human experience. Like, even though it's told through the form of a construct, like, it is everything about this is about the human experience. And that's like, you know, when we first started writing this, we were like, oh, we want to be careful not to say that like Murderbot speaks for like all autistic people, or, you know, because like, you want to be very careful about being inclusive. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, it goes back to what we said in the first episode. We are Murderbot. Murderbot is us. Like, Murderbot is meant to be seen in all kind of forms, and Murderbot like just touches on a vast
self-insert character that no matter what your experience, you can really find yourself within this book in at least one of the characters, if not several, depending on the situation. Hannah, did you have a favorite character beyond Dr. Mensah?
I mean, obviously Murderbot and Art are very easy to both adore. So I would say like Art is definitely a favorite. I loved Art so much. And then I don't know, I think sometimes I liked seeing not all the characters who had like, who came head to head with Murderbot, because sometimes I hated those
Mhm.
characters, but sometimes characters who would bring a different perspective in the moments where they were discussing where they were coming from versus where Murderbot was coming from. I really appreciated those types of characters and what they
Sure.
did to help Murderbot grow. But I don't know if it was like specific characters outside like the heavy hitters. What about
Sure.
you?
You know, I really liked Art and Murderbot the best.
Mhm.
I think that's a pretty common answer. But also, the more I think about it, I really enjoyed Mickey for what Mickey brought into. So I guess I'm just going to lean on the constructs and be like, I love the constructs. But I thought Mickey was a character that kind of flew under the radar for a lot of fans, as far as what I can tell. Everyone's
Yeah.
all about Art and Murderbot, but I think Mickey needs a little more credit for bringing out kind of that softer side of Murderbot and giving Murderbot a little more um, awareness to other people's situations.
Yeah. Well, it's the first death that like really matters to Murderbot, and Murderbot
Mhm.
can't even face the people that it happened to. Like Murderbot
Right.
has to run away from that situation because it feels so guilty. And
Yep.
it's also like kind of the instigation for like going back to Mensa and like saying like, well, we can have a relationship after this and we can come to terms with each other. And I don't need to hide from that fact. And I do think that like Mickey was a good catalyst for Murderbot, where I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like Art is often like a foil to Murderbot, where they're like
Yes.
coming at the same level, but Mickey was a friend and a catalyst to Murderbot in a very unique
Mhm.
way.
For sure. Sure. Did you have a favorite book so far?
Oh, you know that books run together for me. I really adored. I I did adore book 6. I liked the fun little murder
Sure.
mystery. But I also really, really loved book 2, I think.
Yeah.
Like I really liked Artificial Condition. I liked every
Mhm.
part of it. I thought it was amazing. And I think it was just like out of this world good.
The Artificial Condition was my favorite as well. I think that book was easily a standout.
Yeah.
The whole series is great, but that one was easily a standout for me.
Same. It's just, oh gosh, it's so good. Like Murderbot coming back to its roots, Murderbot helping out
Mhm.
those people, even though it doesn't want to. Everything about it. It's just so good. Murderbot getting like its
Mhm.
first name, Eden, like it just Murderbot meeting Art, of course. Like
Yeah.
all of that happens in book 2. And I adore it so much.
I also want to point out, I don't know if we've ever mentioned it, but like the cover art for these books, awesome. And
So
I'm
good.
always looking at them and trying to figure out like, "Oh, what's going on in this one?" But they're beautiful. They're really beautiful. And I have all hardbacks. So if I take off the dust jacket, you can look at the uh, front cover and they're all kind of like
Oh,
embossed with the little rocket on them.
yeah, they're so
Awesome.
gorgeous. I love them. I have some of the softbacks, but I have mostly
Mhm.
hardbacks, and except for that one that I accidentally ruined because I shut a door on it.
Oh no.
I know, broke my heart. But yeah, I don't know. I adore these books. I'm so glad you brought it to us, Laura. Martha Wells. I'm so glad you came to the. I'm glad you came to it as a 56-year-old woman, because I feel like I don't
Yeah.
know. There's a certain maturity in these books that I appreciate, and like
I
after
also just
reading,
appreciate Martha, like as a young woman, like to see somebody like Martha be like, yeah, I thought my career was over, but
yeah,
I tried this and now I'm doing awesome. And
and
I'm this
I think
that gives me hope.
I do think it's fun to like kind of watch Martha Wells like gather her roses versus like we just
Mhm.
came from RF Kwong, who was like the upstart like 20-year-old writing
Yeah.
like massive
Or
hits.
like,
And
I
so
can't
I
believe she's so smart when she's 25.
but I do like there were so many things in those books where it's like, oh, this is still half a thought. And like with Martha Wells,
Mhm.
it's like everything seems very specific. And just like
Mhm.
Murderbot, Martha Wells has her themes and has her identity and has her belief.
Mhm.
And that's it. Like,
Right.
yeah,
I love you, Martha. We love you.
we love you so much. Come on the show. Um,
Yes, Martha, on the
but
pod.
with that said, for now, we are saying goodbye to Murderbot.
Yes. Can I tell you that like the other day when you texted me, I think it was about recording, and I said something about Murderbot. I got like this weird like song in my head, you know, the lollipop song, where I was just like Murderbot, Murderbot, oh
Murder, murder, murder,
Murderbot.
Murderbot. But bum bum.
I was like, that is the worst possible song. Murderbot. Murderbot would hate it. But I could not stop like Murderbot, Murderbot, oh,
Murderbot.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. Well, with that said, guys, join us next week as we hopefully will have Sean Gibson on to discuss the part about the dragon was mostly true. A little indie intermission to
It's
before
Indie April. A lot of people are celebrating Indie April.
Oh, perfect. Well, we're doing Indie April. So April 26th, we will be covering the part about the dragon was mostly true with Sean. He's excellent. And it recently came out for a re-release with a beautiful hardback cover.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. I need to buy it so soon. And then we will be going into our Indie Mission Volume 3, reading Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson. If you guys are following us on Instagram and Twitter, we are hosting a giveaway for one copy for those in the United States and Canada. Apologies. But we can't wait to cover this book. It looks so delightful. It's going to be cozy and perfect for those April showers, guys.
I love it. It looks like the perfect type of cozy fantasy. So if anybody, here's my thing. I have not read it yet, but if anybody is a fan of Legends and Lattes, I feel like we're going to be all in. All of us Legends and Lattes fans are going to be all in to Miss Percy.
But you guys can check out our reading schedule on ourpod.com.
And get ready for season 4.
Get ready for season 4. Jade City by Fonda Lee. We had her on last week and she's a delight. So we start reading it now because it's a chunker. I was so mad. It just made the not cut for Mega May. It's like 490 pages and Mega May is specifically 500 plus. And I'm like, come on, Fonda. You couldn't have given us.
It's 10 pages off.
I know, but it can't count because it's 500 plus.
Too bad you don't know the person who made the rules for Mega May.
I'm the one who made the rules for Mega May. Guys, if you follow us on ourpod.com or on Instagram, you'll see that Hannah is hosting Mega May. It's a month where we read 500 plus page books. I was really hoping Jade City qualified.
Are you going to do a buddy read?
I am doing a buddy read. We will be doing Dr.
Jonathan Strange and Dr.
Jonathan Strange and Dr.
Do I have it right? Is it Jonathan Norrell?
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I will be hosting a buddy read in the first half of May on that specific book. If you would like to join, DM Brews Period and Periods Books or Our Pod on Instagram or Twitter to join along. There are a bunch of little... Yay! There are a bunch of little like prompts, and we usually do like a buddy group chat where we talk about our reading. I develop a different strategies for how you want to go about reading it. If you want to go per day, per week, just like some fun little things, but it is a chunker. So get ready for that, guys. But I'm very excited.
Can I tell you that I previously had checked out this book from the library and it is so long that I was like looking at my schedule and everything. And I was like, there's no way I'll get this done in 4 weeks. So I was just like, well, I read a little bit of it. So then I returned it thinking that you would probably read it for Mega May. And bingo.
You got it. Well, because I loved Piranesi so much. So I had to pick this one up for Mega May because it's such a chonker. So guys, follow along with that. We'll be doing a buddy read in May, along with getting ready for Jade City and a couple other books. Hannah may hate her life by the end of May, but we'll see. So do that. And then also remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our pod. It's like the best way to get word out about this. Share posts on Instagram, on Twitter. Just get the word out that we're doing this. It really does.
Really appreciate it.
And if you guys are interested and are able, we do also have a Patreon. You could do $3, $5, or $10 a month. $10 gets you a book of your choice read by one of us. I recently read a Patreon pick, Sign Here by Claudia Lux. The review will be coming up soon for that. And so you get a book that is read and reviewed by us. So that is awesome. It was a very fun read. Great to start out our Patreon picks with. So make sure you guys are all doing that. Have I left out anything, Laura?
No, just thank you for listening, listeners. If you're here right now, we really appreciate it. Check
Thank
out our
you for
Fonda Lee episode.
I know. Thank you so much for following along for Martha Wells. Come back. I mean, definitely listen to the Fonda Lee episodes, but we will also be
Mhm.
covering future installments of Murderbot. So this is
Yes,
not
we'll
the
be
end of our
back.
journey. It's
This
a
is
see you
see you
later.
later.
But with that said, I hope everyone just enjoyed this. Bye.
Bye.